Hey everyone, and welcome to the third video of the part 2, object-oriented programming. This is the setters and getters. So setters and getters. When an object is private and it can only be accessed through its member functions, we want to create functions. One is used to edit the content and one is used to view the content. Those are called setters and getters. Again, setters are used to edit the content and getters are used to view or retrieve the content. So this is what it would look like. This is used to take data as a parameter and set it to the object's value. So we have a set number, so set num, which takes the int n as a parameter, and it assigns the parameter int n to the actual number, which is part of the object data members, a private data member. So it utilizes this public function, which is a set num function, passes in the num, and the num gets assigned to number. And we do the same thing for every variable that we have. So we have a set number, set zip, set street, set city, and a set state. And because these functions do not return anything, these would all be void return types. So whenever you're using a setter takes in a parameter and does an assignment within the definition, and that is the point of the setter, is to set the content. Again, return type is going to be void, and these always have to be public. And the reason why it's public is because it's referring to private data members. Next, we have getters. So getters do the complete opposite. Setters set the data, and getters retrieve the data. So again, those were set, these are get. So we want to get the number, get the zip, get the street, get the city, and get the state. The whole point of this is simply to return that protected or that private member back to the user. So in this instance, the get num, all it's going to do is return number. All get zip needs to do is return zip, return street, return city, return state. And because we are returning, we have to have the specific return type. So number and zip have to have the return type of int. Street, city, and state have to have the return type of string, because those are those respective types of each of the members. So what would it look like for its use? This is what our program looks like today. So we are creating two different objects. One is a default object, one is a parameterized object, and then we're just calling print on both these items. Now, on the object that is default, which means it does not have any values given to it yet, we are utilizing our setters, and we are setting all the values. So my house, which holds nothing, which is all empty right now, we're going to set the number to 400. We're going to set the street to Elm Street, and we are going to set the city to San Clemente, and the state to California, and then we're going to call the print to print it on itself. And now let's get into the code. Now, this one is a little different. I didn't want to go through and type everything. I felt like it would have been too long. So I want to walk through these codes line by line and explain it that way. So of course, at the top we have our include libraries. So our include IOStream, our using namespace standard. Next, we want to create the address class. So we do that by the keyword class and creating our address with an uppercase A, because we're creating a class. Then use our curly brace to begin our class. Within our private data members, we have, of course, the normals. We have the number, we have the city, we have the street, and we have the state. Next, we have our public data functions, and here we have our default constructor. Our default constructor, again, takes no parameters, and all it does is assign everything to garbage values. So in this case, setting number to 0, zip to 0, street, city, and state are all being assigned to nothing. After that, we have a parameterized constructor. The parameterized constructor takes in all 5 values here. So we have int n, string s, string c, string st for street, and string z for zip. And all of those, n is being assigned to number, z is being assigned to zip, s is being assigned to street, c is being assigned to city, st is being assigned to state. So it's just taking all of the respective items that are being passed in as a parameter, and it's assigning it to its actual variable. And then we have, of course, the print. Print we've already seen, but it's just a return type void because it's not returning anything, and it's just printing all the variables in a context that looks like an address. One thing to note on these on these constructors. These constructors do not have return types. That's something specific to these constructors in general. Constructors do not have a return type, and it gets called on itself. So we have address, which is the same name as the class itself. Next, we're getting into our setters. So we have a setter for each one of the data members. So we have a set number, set zip, set street, set city, and set state. Of course, all of our setters have a parameter, which is the respective parameter that refers to that data member. And then we have the return type of void. And of course, with getters, our return type is the respective data type of that data member. And then no parameters, and all it does for the getters is just return the number. Now getting into our main. So we're going to create the address my house, which is going to call the default constructor. And then the default constructor is going to give it all these variables here. And then we're going to call myhouse.print. Next we have an address place. And now this is a parameterized constructor. So we're going to call this constructor here. And it's going to pass in all of the variables, and those will be assigned to their respective data values. And then we're going to call the print function. And now going back to my house, which was the first object created, we're going to go through and use the setter to set all the values. So setting number, setting street, city, state, and then after all of that, we're going to print it. So when I run this, it is going to print my house, which is going to be default, and then it's going to print place, which is a parameterized constructor, and then it's going to hard code all of these again and then reprint house. So we should see default and then the main street and then the Elm Street. So let's just confirm. So let's go over to build and run. And we have our default constructor. Our default constructor prints, and it looks like it is up here. So it is 0, 0, nothing, 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 which calls our first print statement. Our first print statement is the value of 0, and then a space, and then the street, which in this case is nothing, and then we have a comma, and then we have city, which of course is nothing, and then a comma, and then we have state with a period, and then zip, which is 0, which is what that looks like up there. So that bizarre output matches the default constructor. And then we have the parameterized constructor. Inside our parameterized constructor, we take all these inputs, and then we call the print function on all of that, which gives us a legit output of 100 Main Street in Brea, California. And then we end with the address of my house using all of the setters, and then lastly printing it, which gives us 400 Elm Street in San Clemente. So that is the use of setters and getters and the constructors. So I hope that helps, or the default constructor and the parameterized constructor. I'll add that here before we post that. But I hope that helps. I'll see you guys in the next video.